Seniors, never store these 8 foods in the fridge. It could be dangerous senior health. Tips: if you're over 60, chances are you've built decades of kitchen habits, some passed down from parents, others picked up over time. But here's a surprising truth: not everything belongs in your refrigerator. In fact, storing certain foods in the fridge doesn't just make them taste worse, it can increase your risk of foodborne illness, digestive issues, or nutrient loss. And for seniors whose immune systems naturally weaken with age, that's a serious concern. Many older adults are trying to eat healthier, reduce waste, and live on a fixed income. But if you're unknowingly ruining your groceries by chilling the wrong things, you could be doing more harm than good. Today, we're revealing 8 foods that should never go in the refrigerator and why keeping them cold might be a habit worth breaking. Let's start with one that almost everyone gets wrong. Even professional chefs sometimes overlook this one. 1. Tomatoes fridge cold destroys their flavor and heart-healthy benefits. Tomatoes are one of the most common kitchen staples across America, especially for seniors. They're low-calorie, rich in vitamins A and C, and packed with antioxidants, like lycopene, which studies have linked to a lower risk of heart disease, certain cancers, and even age-related vision loss. But despite their health benefits, tomatoes are also one of the most mistreated foods in the kitchen. Most people automatically toss them into the fridge, assuming that cold means freshness. Unfortunately, that habit might be doing more harm than good, especially for seniors who rely on tomatoes as part of a heart-healthy diet. You see, cold temperatures below 50 degrees Fahrenheit, 10 degrees Celsius interrupt a tomato's natural ripening process. Important because ripening isn't just about softness. It's when the fruit develops complex sugars, acids, and aroma compounds. The refrigerator halts that process, leaving tomatoes bland, sour, and mealy. One study from the University of Florida found that after just 7 days in the fridge, tomatoes lost up to 65% of their aroma-producing compounds, the very chemicals responsible for their sweet, rich flavor. But texture is another hidden problem. The cold damages membranes inside the fruit's cell walls, releasing water and making them feel mushy or slimy. That's why even a perfectly ripe tomato can turn into a flavorless disappointment overnight. In the fridge, and there's more. The antioxidant lycopene, the nutrient that gives tomatoes their red color and protects against free radical damage, is temperature sensitive. Research shows that refrigeration can reduce lycopene content by altering enzyme activity inside the tomato. For seniors managing cholesterol, blood pressure, or inflammation, losing lycopene is a missed opportunity to naturally support the heart. Another overlooked issue is that refrigerated tomatoes often go to waste. When they lose their texture and flavor, people tend to throw them out rather than use them. That's wasted money, wasted nutrition, and wasted effort. Something no senior on a budget needs. So what's the solution? Store tomatoes on your countertop, stems side down. This helps prevent air and bacteria from entering through the scar where the tomato was picked. Keep them out of direct sunlight and use them within a few days of ripening. If they become slightly soft, that's okay. They'll taste even better in sauces, soups, or stews. But above all, remember this rule of thumb. If it smells like a tomato, it belongs on the counter. If it doesn't, the fridge probably ruined it. 2. Bread refrigeration speeds up staleness and can trigger digestive issues in seniors. For seniors trying to stretch every grocery dollar, it seems logical to keep bread in the refrigerator to make it last longer. After all, cold slows down mold growth, right? That part is true, but what's not widely known is that refrigeration dramatically accelerates staling. In fact, research from food science labs, including studies published by the USDA and the Journal of Agricultural and Food Chemistry, confirms that bread goes stale 6 times faster in the fridge than at room temperature. That's because of a process called retrogradation, where starch molecules in the bread recrystallize and expel moisture more rapidly when exposed to cold temperatures. The result? A dry, hard, and unpleasant loaf that tastes off, even when technically still fresh. But for seniors, this isn't just about taste or texture. Hard, stale bread can be difficult to chew, especially for those with dentures, gum sensitivity, or dry mouth caused by medications. It's also more likely to cause minor choking hazards, especially if eaten without soup or beverages. Beyond that, stale bread often leads to unnecessary food waste. You might think you're preserving it, but instead, you're quietly setting yourself up to throw it away after a few days of disappointing slices. That's money and calories wasted. And here's something most people don't realize. Refrigeration doesn't prevent mold forever. It just delays it. Once a loaf starts developing invisible spores, even in a cold environment, mold can spread microscopically long before you see the first fuzzy patch. For seniors with weakened immune systems or underlying conditions like asthma or COPD, ingesting mold, even in trace amounts, can irritate the lungs or digestive tract. So, what's the best way to store bread? If you plan to eat it within 2 to 4 days, keep it in a bread box, cloth bag, or paper bag at room temperature away from sunlight and heat sources. This protects both texture and flavor. If you've bought a larger loaf or don't eat bread daily, slice it and freeze it instead. The freezer halts starch retrogradation and mold growth without drying the bread. Just take out a slice or two at a time and toast or warm it gently. That way, your toast stays crisp, your sandwiches stay soft, and your digestive system stays safer. Remember, for seniors, comfort food should actually be comfortable, not hard, stale, or risky. 3. Potatoes cold converts starch to sugar, raising acrylamide risk for seniors. Most of us are used to tossing a bag of potatoes into the bottom drawer of the fridge, thinking it'll keep them firm and prevent sprouting. But for seniors, especially those managing blood sugar or trying to reduce cancer risk, this habit can backfire in a serious way. When raw potatoes are stored at cold temperatures, typically below 45 degrees Fahrenheit or 7 degrees Celsius, the starch inside begins to convert into sugar through a process called cold-induced sweetening. On the surface, this doesn't seem alarming until you cook those potatoes. The excess sugar reacts with the amino acid asparagine during high-temperature cooking, such as baking, frying, or roasting, and forms a chemical called acrylamide. This compound has been classified by the World Health Organization and the National Cancer Institute as a potential human carcinogen. In other words, refrigerated potatoes don't just taste oddly sweet, they might produce substances that raise your long-term health risks. This is especially concerning for seniors, who are already more vulnerable to oxidative stress and cellular damage. Acrylamide exposure has been linked to nervous system damage and may contribute to age-related cognitive decline. While occasional consumption is unlikely to cause harm, repeated exposure, especially through crisped or fried potatoes, stored cold, can quietly build up in the body over time. But that's not the only reason to avoid refrigeration. Cold storage also alters the texture of potatoes, making them gritty, watery, or tough after cooking. If you've ever noticed your mashed potatoes turning gluey or your roasted wedges tasting oddly sugary, that's likely due to improper storage. Worse yet, refrigeration doesn't prevent sprouting, it simply slows it. Once potatoes begin to sprout or turn green, they produce solanine, a natural toxin that can cause nausea, dizziness, or even heart rhythm problems in sensitive individuals. Seniors with slower metabolism or kidney issues may be especially affected by these toxic compounds. So how should potatoes be stored safely? The best place is a dark, dry, well-ventilated pantry or cupboard. Ideally between Y-55 degrees Fahrenheit, Y-13 degrees Celsius. Avoid plastic bags. They trap moisture and encourage rot. Instead, use a paper bag or mesh sack. Keep them away from onions, which release gases that accelerate spoilage. If your home is very warm, a cool basement or insulated garage may work better. And if you've already refrigerated potatoes, don't panic. Just bring them back to room temperature for several days before cooking to allow some of the sugars to convert back. Better yet, use them in boiled recipes like potato salad or stews, which don't reach acrylamide-producing temperatures. Small changes like this protect your nutrition, preserve your taste buds, and reduce invisible risks that build up over time. 4. Honey cold ruins its natural healing properties and confuses seniors into wasting it. Honey is often called liquid gold, and for good reason. It's naturally antibacterial, packed with antioxidants, and can soothe sore throats, support digestion, and even help with wound healing when applied topically. For seniors seeking natural, gentle remedies, honey can be a powerful ally, especially for those trying to avoid synthetic medications or who are managing multiple prescriptions. But here's where the trouble starts. Many people, especially those concerned about spoilage, place honey in the refrigerator out of habit. Unfortunately, that cold air triggers a rapid process of crystallization, transforming smooth, golden honey into a hard, grainy lump that's difficult to use and often mistaken for being spoiled. This leads many seniors to toss perfectly good honey into the trash, wasting not only a valuable food, but a potent natural medicine. Crystallization is not a sign of spoilage. In fact, it's a completely natural reaction to low temperatures. The glucose in honey begins to separate from water and form tiny crystals, especially when exposed to cold or if the honey contains pollen or natural particles, which most healthy, raw honeys do. Refrigerating honey accelerates this process dramatically. Once it hardens, some seniors may try to microwave the jar to soften it, a well-intended mistake that actually destroys the enzymes, phytonutrients, and antibacterial compounds that make honey so beneficial in the first place. Heat above 104 degrees Fahrenheit, 40 degrees Celsius begins to degrade the enzymes like glucose oxidase, which produces hydrogen peroxide, one of honey's natural defenses against bacteria. That means your revived honey might taste okay, but it's lost most of its healing powers. Another overlooked issue is accessibility. Crystallized honey can be tough to scoop, especially for older adults with arthritis or hand weakness. And if it's stored in a squeeze bottle, forget it. You'll likely end up squeezing until your fingers ache, or worse, throwing the whole thing out. That's not only wasteful, it's frustrating, especially when many seniors are trying to simplify their routines and rely on easy-to-use foods. The solution? Never refrigerate honey. Store it at room temperature in a tightly sealed glass or plastic container, away from sunlight and moisture. If it does crystallize over time, which is normal, gently warm the container in a bowl of warm water, not boiling, stirring slowly to dissolve the crystals without overheating. Better yet, purchase smaller jars of raw, local honey that can be used within a few months. This preserves freshness, avoids crystallization, and supports your local immune system with trace pollen from your area. For seniors focused on health, energy, and immune resilience, honey can be more than just a sweetener. It can be a gentle medicine, but only if you store it right. 5. Onions refrigeration causes sogginess, mold, and digestive discomfort in seniors. Onions are one of the most frequently used vegetables in senior households. They're affordable, add depth to almost any dish, and carry a surprising list of health benefits. Rich in flavonoids and sulfur compounds, onions can help lower blood pressure, support immune function, and even reduce blood sugar spikes, crucial for older adults managing type 2 diabetes. But despite their value, many people make a simple mistake: storing whole onions in the refrigerator. This might seem like a good way to keep them from sprouting or drying out. But in reality, cold storage leads to exactly the opposite, and it can make your onions slimy, moldy, and far more likely to upset your stomach. Here's why. Whole onions have thin, papery skin that protects them from moisture loss. But inside a refrigerator, especially the crisper drawer, the air is more humid than most people realize. That moisture seeps into the onion's outer layers, softening them, encouraging bacterial growth, and breaking down natural sugars. The result is a soggy, rubbery texture and a faintly sour odor that makes even fresh onions seem off. Worse, the cold temperature causes the onion cells to burst, a process that not only alters the texture, but also releases enzymes that break down sulfur compounds prematurely. This leads to sharper, more unpleasant flavors and can increase the risk of gas, bloating, or indigestion for seniors with sensitive digestion or gastrointestinal conditions, like IBS or diverticulitis. Another issue is mold. Once an onion's protective skin begins to absorb moisture and soften, it becomes vulnerable to mold spores, particularly black mold aspergillus, Niger, that grows silently under the outer layers. Many older adults with reduced vision or sense of smell might not notice early signs of spoilage and unknowingly cook with contaminated onions. This poses risks to anyone, but especially to those with respiratory issues or weakened immune systems. The same goes for cut onions stored improperly. While they can be kept in the fridge for a short period if sealed tightly, they should be used within 1 to 2 days and never left exposed to air or moisture. So what's the proper way to store onions? Whole unpeeled onions should be kept in a dry, well-ventilated space at room temperature, such as a mesh bag, open basket, or hanging rack in the pantry. Keep them away from potatoes, which release ethylene gas and moisture that can accelerate sprouting and spoilage. If you've already cut an onion, wrap it tightly in plastic wrap or store it in an airtight glass container. Then refrigerate and use quickly. But as a rule of thumb, if it's whole and unpeeled, keep it out of the fridge. This preserves flavor, prevents waste, and makes your onions safer and more enjoyable to use. One less kitchen frustration to worry about. 6. Garlic refrigeration promotes mold growth and kills its natural healing power. Garlic has been used for thousands of years, not just as a flavor enhancer, but as a powerful medicinal food. For seniors in particular, garlic offers real benefits. It can help regulate blood pressure, lower cholesterol, support immune response, and even act as a mild blood thinner, all of which are important for aging bodies. Many older adults take garlic supplements or incorporate raw cloves into their diets to reduce inflammation and protect against chronic disease. But one storage mistake can undo all of that: putting garlic in the refrigerator. While it might seem like a way to keep garlic from sprouting or drying out, refrigerating whole bulbs can lead to dangerous mold growth, flavor loss, and reduced health benefits. Here's the science. Garlic bulbs are composed of tightly packed cloves with thin, papery skin. When stored in the refrigerator, they're exposed to moisture and condensation, especially during door openings or humidity changes. This creates a perfect breeding ground for mold, particularly Penicillium and Aspergillus species, which often grow deep inside the cloves without showing signs on the surface. Seniors with weakened immune systems, COPD, or asthma are especially at risk if they consume garlic that appears fine but is harboring hidden mold. Refrigeration also encourages early sprouting. When garlic sprouts, it may look healthy, but it becomes bitter and significantly loses its medicinal potency. The active compound allicin, which forms when garlic is crushed, becomes less concentrated after sprouting or prolonged cold exposure, meaning you lose the very compound that fights bacteria, fungi, and inflammation. Even worse, sprouted or moldy garlic is often used unknowingly, hidden in soups or sauces where its altered taste is masked. That means seniors may be eating compromised garlic without realizing it. And for those on blood thinners or heart medications, this could interact with treatments, adding a layer of invisible risk. Refrigeration also makes garlic rubbery or soggy over time, making it harder to peel, chop, or roast properly. For older adults with arthritis or hand weakness, it turns one simple ingredient into a frustrating kitchen task and increases the likelihood of cuts or accidents from slipping cloves. The better approach: store whole garlic bulbs in a dry, dark, well-ventilated container, like a mesh basket or ceramic garlic keeper at room temperature. Avoid sealed plastic bags or airtight containers that trap moisture. If you've peeled too much garlic, at once place the extra cloves in a small jar, cover them with olive oil, and refrigerate for up to 1 week only, but make sure to label it and use it quickly, as storing garlic in oil too long can create a rare but serious risk of botulism. Bottom line: garlic is a health powerhouse, but only when stored properly. Keep it dry, dark, and out of the fridge. 7. Coffee refrigeration ruins flavor, texture, and may introduce harmful moisture. For many seniors, coffee is more than just a beverage. It's a comforting ritual, a social habit, and for some, a daily essential. Whether it's a morning cup to ease into the day or an afternoon sip with a neighbor, coffee provides warmth, routine, and even some cognitive benefits. Studies suggest moderate coffee intake may support brain health, reduce risk of Parkinson's, and improve focus in older adults. But when it comes to storing coffee, especially ground coffee or beans, the refrigerator is one of the worst places you can put it. In fact, refrigeration can ruin your coffee in multiple ways by dulling its flavor, damaging its aroma, and even introducing moisture that leads to spoilage. Coffee is highly hygroscopic, meaning it absorbs moisture and odors from its environment very easily. When placed in the fridge, especially if not sealed perfectly airtight, it begins to absorb moisture from the cold, humid air. This causes the oils in the beans or grounds to break down more quickly, leading to stale, flat-tasting coffee. That rich aroma you love in a freshly opened bag. It disappears fast in a fridge. Worse, the grounds or beans may start to clump or become damp, and that moisture can encourage the growth of mold or bacteria, especially if you're using a scoop that's not completely dry. Seniors with reduced sense of smell or taste might not notice that their coffee has gone off and continue using it without realizing they're drinking something potentially irritating to the gut. But the biggest issue for seniors might not be flavor, it's inconsistency. Refrigerated coffee often brews unevenly. One day it's too weak, the next it's overly bitter. This happens because the moisture changes how the coffee extracts during brewing, especially with drip machines or French presses that rely on precise water absorption. And for those on medications that affect taste or stomach sensitivity, bad coffee can lead to nausea, reflux, or heartburn. Many older adults attribute this to aging digestion, when in fact, their coffee has simply been compromised by poor storage. Some seniors also mistakenly believe that refrigeration extends shelf life. In reality, it accelerates staling once the package is opened. So how should you store coffee? Keep it in an airtight container in a dark, cool pantry. Never in the fridge or freezer unless it's unopened and you won't use it for months. And even then, once you bring it to room temperature, don't return it to cold storage. Purchase smaller bags of whole beans when possible and grind just what you need for a few days. Not only will the taste improve, but your daily ritual will become smoother, more reliable, and far more enjoyable. Because when you're over 60, comfort and consistency aren't just luxuries, they're essentials. 8. Basil. The fridge kills its flavor, color, and nutritional value almost overnight. Fresh basil is a favorite among seniors who enjoy cooking at home, especially for those preparing Mediterranean-style dishes that support heart health and reduce inflammation. This aromatic herb is rich in vitamin K, manganese, and plant compounds like eugenol, which has mild anti-inflammatory effects. But if you've ever bought a vibrant bunch of basil, only to find it limp, blackened, and tasteless after a night in the fridge, you're not alone. Basil is incredibly sensitive to cold, so much so that placing it in the refrigerator can destroy its structure, flavor, and nutrients within hours. For seniors trying to eat fresh, flavorful food on a budget, that kind of spoilage isn't just frustrating. It's discouraging. Basil originates from warm climates like India and the Mediterranean, and its cellular structure is not adapted to cold storage. When exposed to temperatures below 50 degrees Fahrenheit, 10 degrees Celsius, the delicate cell walls break down rapidly. This leads to dark, slimy leaves, a bitter aftertaste, and the complete loss of that sweet, peppery aroma that makes basil so appealing. Worse, the breakdown releases enzymes that speed up oxidation, making the leaves turn black even faster. For seniors with vision impairments or reduced sense of smell, this can lead to accidental consumption of spoiled basil, which may not be harmful in small amounts, but is certainly unappetizing and can trigger digestive discomfort in sensitive stomachs. There's also a nutritional cost. Cold-damaged basil loses its polyphenols and antioxidants much faster than herbs stored properly. That means you miss out on the very compounds that help reduce inflammation, protect blood vessels, and support the immune system. Many seniors who take blood thinners also use basil as a natural source of vitamin K, which aids in bone strength and healing. But if that basil has been damaged by cold, the vitamin content may drop dramatically before you even get a chance to use it. And since basil is often bought fresh and in small amounts, wasting it becomes a cycle. Buy, refrigerate, spoil, discard, repeat. So what's the right way to store basil? Treat it like fresh flowers. Trim the stems, place them in a jar with water, and leave it on your kitchen counter away from direct sunlight. You can loosely cover the top with a plastic bag to trap moisture and slow wilting, but never seal it tightly. And never place it in the fridge. Change the water every 2 days, and your basil can stay fresh for up to a week. Alternatively, if you need to preserve it longer, consider chopping it and freezing it in olive oil using an ice cube tray, a trick many seniors love for easy portioning. Remember, basil thrives in warmth, and so does its flavor. Keep it out of the cold, and it will reward you with both health and happiness. As we age, every small decision we make, especially in the kitchen, can have a ripple effect on our overall health, comfort, and quality of life. Choosing what goes into the fridge might seem trivial, but as you've seen, it can mean the difference between nourishing your body or unknowingly making things harder on it. Cold storage isn't always safer. In fact, for the 8 foods we've covered, tomatoes, bread, potatoes, honey, onions, garlic, coffee, and basil, refrigeration does more harm than good. It can ruin texture, destroy flavor, reduce nutrients, encourage mold, or even form harmful compounds that build up over time. And when you're over 60, your body simply doesn't process these things as efficiently as it used to. That's why smart storage matters. But here's the good news. The fixes are simple. A mesh basket for garlic, a glass jar for honey, a cloth bag for bread, a sunny countertop for basil. These aren't expensive solutions, they're thoughtful habits. Habits that preserve your food's natural benefits, protect your digestion, and reduce frustrating waste. You deserve meals that taste like food, that nourish your heart and brain, and that don't require you to just live with odd textures, mystery stomach aches, or bland bites. And you certainly deserve to feel confident that the choices you're making in your kitchen are working with your body, not against it. So the next time you open your fridge, take a look around. See what's hiding in the cold that might be better off in the light. Share this list with someone you love, especially a fellow senior who might be tossing out moldy garlic or mushy tomatoes every week, thinking it's normal, because when we understand why these storage rules matter, we give ourselves more than just fresher food. We reclaim control over one of the most powerful tools for aging well, our daily plate.